everybody. My name is Mikhail Sayfullin. It's my colleague Jeff Vainstein. We are here with the project Enecuum. We call it Enecuum. Let's talk about our topic of the presentation today. It's a future of the blockchain technology. Firstly, let's talk about the consensus. As you know, the blockchain needed only when you have more than two people which actually don't trust to each other. And actually, this is the main role of the blockchain in our new life and new economic. And let's see about a little bit in history. In 1892, a group of mathematical scientists created the Byzantine full tolerance task. It was actually, this task was decide the first concept of the consensus algorithm. And then, only in 1993, pricing via processing, this is the company which create the first conception of proof of work algorithm and proof of work concept, which was stated on the Byzantine full tolerance task. And then, after a few years, the Hashcash company realized this proof of work concept. And only after less than 10 years, the Bitcoin was used the idea of the consensus and the proof of work together and bring the new ideas on the market and on the world. And then Ethereum, it's very promisable and very interesting project, which actually still more useful product, but firstly just for crowdfunding and for application which created on the top of the blockchain of Ethereum. And it's a mineable coin with the proof of work consensus, with a smart contract and the Solidity language, but at the same time, as you know, it's very expensive cost of transaction at the moment, and also it's a very weak security, slow speed, etc., etc. And also we have like few very interesting project and protocol on the market. As a Monero, it's mostly anonymous transaction, which actually people use it for anonymize all transaction which you can imagine. Also, the very famous project, it's IOTA. It's not a blockchain. It's they use the technology which called directed acyclic graph. It's very fast, but at the same time, it's also have weak security, and it's not a decentralized project. It's still decentralized with the nodes which actually supported by the owners of the system. EOS, it's a project which was run. It will be run in a few months. Very interesting project. We use the DPoS algorithm of consensus with a smart contract, with the open source, no mineable coin, and with the zero cost of transaction. The hash graph Kidera, it's also a very interesting project which just became on the market a few months ago, but it was based on the algorithm of hash graph, which actually using the BFT task. And what happened from our points of view on the market? Actually, it's three problems: speed, security, and scalability. We work with all the problem. We solve it with the technical architecture. We use the blocks and DAG at the same time. We call it HyperDAC. It means our protocol can be very fast and very security at the same time. Multi-consensus algorithm, we use proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of activity, which is probably absolutely new on the market for the secure, and mobile phone nodes and the sharding for the scalable. How it's happened in our network? We use the multi-consensus algorithm. Firstly, the proof of work nodes can open the block, and then we called it the smartphone consensus battle. It means our nodes can be the mobile phones, the smartphones, because we use the JavaScript smart contracts. It means all smartphones can validate the transaction and can validate the smart contracts. And this is the global part of our network, which actually will get the rewards from our emission model. It means for the clients, it will be zero cost transactions. Just imagine we have about 3 billion telephones, smartphones right now on the planet, and this is still growing and growing and growing. And we can have and use the computation of the smartphones, and we can use the storage of these smartphones, and we can use these smartphones for validated transaction. And it's very, very fast and very securable. Jeff, your turn for use cases.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your time. My name is Jeff, and I would like to mention some of the use cases probably maybe you heard of, probably not. We're going to start from smart contracts. So most of you probably know what is a smart contract. So it's basically a universal engine that powers many use cases, and it allows several people that do not trust each other to come to some kind of a conclusion where they use smart contract basically to certify their transactions. So probably the easiest example is when you use a bank transfer today from one country to some kind of faraway country, you do it probably using your mobile application or banking application, but in real time what happens is a completely manual process. There are a lot of bankers behind it that they check and see that, okay, whether you have enough money on your bank to transfer it from, let's say, Germany to Zimbabwe. So those are intermediate banks. So they check if you have enough money. If you have enough money, they basically call your bank, they ask the bankers there if you have enough money, and then they certify it, and this is how this process is working. Sometimes you have 6 or even more banks in the middle who do this transaction. So I would guess in a smart contracts way, when we're talking about proof of work, those nodes that make this certification are actually the miners. Okay, you can call them, basically they are miners. They do the same. They certify the transactions with smart contracts using high computational power from basically HPCs, computers, ASICs, call them whatever you like to call them. So in our case, because we have a possibility to have a very large of transactions per second on the future of blockchain, which is Enecuum, currently it's approximately 60,000 transactions per second, it allows us to create multiple different applications which are really interesting on top of the blockchain. We encourage companies to work with us to create those applications. We have already several big companies that work in our ecosystem. And one of the examples of such applications is a software that will be similar to, let's say, a Lego platform and an e-commerce platform at the same time for smart contracts. So imagine to yourself that, let's say, you want to have a buy and sell contract or a rent contract in Dubai. So in order to do this, you need to hire a lawyer. Lawyer is quite expensive in most of the cases. Let's say you cannot afford a lawyer, or maybe you can afford a lawyer, but you don't want to waste so much money. So you go inside this platform, you click Dubai. It gives you a possibility to use predefined templates of smart contracts that are certified by existing lawyers. You can also use this platform and hire immediately service givers, service providers on the same platform in order, if you want really to change something fast. But the platform will be, it will be working similarly to, let's say, Upwork or Fiverr, and everything will happen in the real time. Even if you need several lawyers, they can basically, you can use several different smart contracts at the same time using either templates or service givers. So this is one of the possible use cases that we're currently having on our platform by a software company. So another use case which is probably very important for some countries in the world, I would guess I'm from Germany specifically, so in Germany, if you go to one doctor and the doctor gives you some kind of, he asks you to make some blood samples or röntgens, and you do this stuff, you need to take all this paper, all these samples with you to the next doctor and to the next doctor. So if you need to visit several different physicians because of your problem, you basically need to carry all this stuff with you all the time. So let's say if you lost it or something like that, or if you need a a previous Röntgen or a previous blood sample that was taken 1 year ago, just to understand the differences, you basically need to carry with you, I don't know, truck of paper and Röntgens. So, and this is Germany, actually a quite developed country. I would guess this problem persists in actually many countries. So imagine to yourself that there is a completely decentralized ecosystem of healthcare providers that have a decentralized database and storage of your medical Röntgens, urine samples, blood samples, whatever it is, and you basically carry this digital identity, healthcare digital identity with you all the time when you travel from country to country. And then when you need to go to a doctor, he just uses some kind of, I don't know, magnetic card or something, and he sees all your Röntgens or your urine samples or your blood samples and can really understand and give you the right service. In the same manner, this can be applicable to medications. So it's very hard. Let's say I'm a traveler right now. I arrived to Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and I just want to buy Fenistil, which is a drug from allergy. I just cannot buy it because I need to go to a physician and he needs to make a prescription. So this is waste of my time. If my time costs X amount of dollars, multiplied by hours, it can be wasted of several thousands of dollars. Second of all, I need to find a doctor. If it's, let's say, Sunday, it's quite hard to find a doctor. If I have a very bad allergy, so basically I have nothing to do. And I actually give you an example of a friend of mine. So he experienced exactly this situation. So this is a true example. So in our case, there is a company that is building completely decentralized healthcare system that part of it is actually related to medication. So if a person has some kind of monthly prescriptions, so they can be certified by, in a smart contract by his physician, and this ecosystem will be used cross-border, so we can go with it to, let's say, Amsterdam to a pharmacy. If the pharmacy have access to the same system, they can immediately log in and find that this guy has recipe for different medications against blood pressure, against allergy, or whatever. So actually, this is improving a complete service to people that currently need to waste a lot of money on doctors from one end, just to receive a prescription. From the other side, it gives also a possibility for the companies who produce drugs. Actually, it increase their sales because it's a kind of a way to completely change the economy from the perspective of the healthcare. So probably the most important is, like Mike was mentioning, is the mobile mining part. So everybody is speaking about blockchain and how it will change the lives of people in developing countries. So I was living in Africa, in Angola, for 2 years, and I know that to find a data center there with electricity that works 24/7 from the government, it's virtually impossible. So we have a grid that is working maybe 4 hours, and everything else is working on the generators. The electricity is extremely expensive. There is no good data centers where you can really put your, let's say, ASICs or other HPCs that are making the proof of work, the blockchain calculations. So eventually you don't have a good infrastructure to support your blockchain transactions. And if you're using a cloud and you're doing it from faraway location, so it means that you will be having a lot of problems in speed if you're using existing blockchain protocols. So in our case, if you want to use your some kind of blockchain applications in Somalia or Eritrea or I don't know, in some kind of developing countries in Latin America, all you need is several guys with mobile phones. And basically, this will enable to use our protocol in those countries immediately. So this use case is basically virtually good for anything, but we give some examples here, like unfortunately those are old slides, but examples can be micropayments, it can be microloans, it can be money transfers from cross-border. It can be basically any application that you want to run on top of a blockchain protocol in those developing countries. And of course, the amount of users that have mobile phones is like everybody actually has a mobile phone. When we're talking about ASICs, is something that you need to order, you need to deliver it, so it takes a lot of time actually. The time to market with ASICs is quite high. with mobile phone is like a snap. So blockchain is probably one of the most important thing that can change our supply chain. It can improve and expedite the supply chains. Just an example, if you have a farmer in Malawi that is growing coffee for you, but there are like several different people in the middle between this farmer and until this coffee is reaching companies, let's say like Nestle or Unilever. So maybe this farmer is growing this coffee and this is the best coffee in the world, but the middleman is buying it and gives him some kind of peanuts. So the farmer actually doesn't get enough money for the product that he's selling. Those kind of middlemen, there are sometimes there are like 20 or 30 middlemen in the middle between the farmer and companies like Unilever, Nestle, and etc. So blockchain applications can actually remove those middlemen, that's for starts. And with the help of IoT devices, you can really control, first of all, the location of your merchandise. You can control the quality of your merchandise using the AI technologies. With coffee, you actually, by analyzing the picture of the coffee, you can understand whether the coffees that are going to be supplied to you will be quality coffee or something completely different. So some of the examples of the systems that are working on top of our blockchain are it can create automation of dealings with local farmers, track source, location and quality of the merchandise. It can speed up payment for the farmers, and it gives deep transparency and automation of the verification process. And this is probably most interesting to any companies that will be doing business in Europe starting May 25th. So anybody heard here about GDPR? Okay, so GDPR is a new regulation that will happen in Europe, in the complete EU region since May 25th. So anybody who is having some kind of business in Europe with European customers will need to comply to this regulation. Mostly it's around security of data of your customers, but there are a lot of aspects related to basically the fact that you will need to provide the data to the customer. What I'm talking about, let's say you buy in some kind of store some carrots and sausages and some other products for 10 years. And this store actually is collecting data about you, what kind of products you buy, from which brands you buy it, and etc. So you currently don't know about this information, but most of those shops, they do exactly like that. I mean, the big networks. And with GDPR, there is something that there is a process where anybody who collecting any sort of data about you is actually he needs to comply and give this data to you in a readable format. So you can come to the store and say, okay, I want all my data that you collected in 10 years, give it to me please in a readable format. And the store will need to comply with that. And moreover, you can actually take this data and give it to the competitor of the store. So because you actually are owner of this data and not Google and not Facebook and not the store and any other company. So this is actually creating, from the social perspective, we have a lot of people that are using the internet and sometimes their income is very, very low. So, and a lot of companies are collecting data about them. So this GDPR and one of the companies that we have in our ecosystem, it creates actually a kind of e-commerce platform with a lot of different data providers and data brokers that allows to these people that are currently unfortunate and their income is basically not so big. It will allow them to give their data inside this platform, and brokers will be able to monetize it for them and give it to other competitors and to other companies, and it will create a basically revenue share process between the customers, the brokers, and other competitors. So it's a very interesting ecosystem from one side. From another side, the same company is actually, everything in this ecosystem is working on smart contracts. And you need to have a lot of smart contracts to be able to do something like this, because we are talking about the complete EU. So it's like millions of people. So this kind of ecosystem, it should support thousands of transactions per second. In our case, we are running right now 60,000, but our ecosystem can scale in such a way that every node that we add is actually increasing the speed of our network and not decreasing it. From the another perspective, the same use case and the same platform can give also compliancy for GDPR for small, medium businesses and enterprise companies that having a business in Europe. It can basically put a complete V and cover up to 12 different aspects of GDPR, specifically around data transparency, data mobility, opt-in, opt-out, data management, secure distributed storage. So this is the use cases that we wanted to speak about and already running on our network with like an application from software companies, software providers. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, we are here, so we can answer all your questions offline.
Thank you very much.